the Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor.
Open Thoth forever, baby.
Martine Wismayer from General Bytes.
Good evening, everyone.
Josh Shigala from Voltoro. Still muted. Ha.
The hash rate's dropping. Somebody help.
Ben Ark from LN Bits. He's muted too. Adam McBride from the Adam McBride Show.
Bro, I am not muted. Great to be here. Let's go.
All right. And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue one, Bitcoin faces the largest ever negative difficulty adjustment. The Bitcoin network is expected to see its largest ever negative difficulty adjustment today of over 27%, retargeting from 19.9 T to 14.4. The retargeting is expected to occur later today, mainly caused by the mass exodus of Bitcoin miners from China. Yes, China finally made good on their goal to ban Bitcoin, and they banned it. Everyone give us a thumbs up right now. Dan Eve, your thoughts on Bitcoin's negative difficulty adjustment.
Wow, I'm surprised we haven't seen more like mining death spiral articles and loads of chicken licking, sky falling down, and the kind of general FUD. So it's kind of good that we haven't. Like the difficulty reached a high of 22.77 trillion, currently sat at about 18.12. I remember like when I was doing my calculations in 2013 for whether mining would be profitable, the difficulty was like 10 or 11 million. And I have the spreadsheet now. So I think obviously, you know, this is a huge adjustment down. The hash rate went from like 171 exahashes. It reached a sort of low of about or 58.98. So that's like a 65% drop. But and I think the kind of the interesting thing about that is that if what everyone was saying was true, or they were standing behind their arguments that all the mining in China is coal-based, then we've just removed 65% of coal-based mining, yo. So we must be getting closer to that 50% threshold of Musk and Tesla getting back in the game. And maybe that information on mining outside of China is going to be easier to assess and analyze and see if we actually are reaching that 50%. But I'd say overall, hopefully, hopefully the hash rate obviously is back on the way up. It reached a low of 58.98 and is back up at about 96.49. So it's nearly, not double, but it's definitely significantly up on its low. So I think we're over this hurdle soon.
We did it. We saved the environment. Martine Wismayer, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was all coal-based. You see reports of hydro energy plants now up for sale in China because they're blocking the rivers and generating electricity in the middle of, well, basically nowhere. So the electricity has nowhere to go. So there's also lots of hydro power up for grabs now. For centralization, I think it's good we're moving out of China. I'm not sure where it's moving now. Even if it would remain offline, it wouldn't be a big deal. There's plenty of hash rate, as Dan already said. And but I've seen reports, people are now moving to Texas to use methane gas, which would normally be flared off, or nuclear energy, which is, well, I don't know, no, still nuclear. So our green Bitcoins are no longer coming from hydro dams, but instead we use methane gas and nuclear energy to power our blocks. So I don't know, if it might as well stay offline. I honestly wouldn't care. The network is secure enough. So It's just if it goes down anymore, then I'll just start up my own miners again and dust them off and start mining again here in the shed. So yeah, okay. I'm not too worried really.
Wouldn't it be great if all the Bitcoin mining led to an excess of nuclear waste? And that's finally what did in the species. They're like, they mined this imaginary online currency so much with their nuclear reactors. They created so much waste. They polluted the whole planet and they couldn't continue on. Adam McBride, your thoughts on the Bitcoin difficulty adjustment?
I think it's wonderful, man. I think it's taking care of the one biggest risk to Bitcoin, in my opinion, which was China. Having not the energy, I think Elon actually did us a favor by pointing out the energy thing, even though it was complete FUD and not really based on science. It pointed out the biggest weakness to Western governments, which is the energy thing. That was how they were going to try and kill it, was energy. I think this takes that off the table, and it get those mines out of China, which to me was the biggest risk to the Bitcoin network. So bravo. It's good stuff.
Thanks to Wally in the chat. Let's go to Josh Shigala.
You know, I got asked by some publications today in an interview about this question, and really it comes down to it doesn't really matter. Like the Bitcoin network is so overly protected that people don't quite understand how much hash rate, how many computers are beavering away on this puzzle that is the trying to find some zeros in front of a hash. Like it's so vast that. And I did this calculation when it was like 1 exahash or something. It was like that all of Google, if all of Google pointed their hardware at the Bitcoin network, it would add like around 1% of the network. So it's impossible. There is no network on this planet that can 51% Bitcoin right now. So even if this stays offline, all that happens is the difficulty readjusts, the mining keeps on going, and eventually the mining hardware will find a new home where it's legal and it's got a secure road to continue its fans blaring off into the night, and it'll just come back online. So not worried at all. It's part of the network. It's wonderful. It is what it is, and it's actually, like Adam said it before, that the risk to the network that it was China. I wouldn't say China as such. If it was in any one country, it's a risk to the network. So it's great that it's moving and diversifying, and like anything, it's trying to find the cheapest hash power. It's trying to find the cheapest energy. So that will most likely be in cooler climates. Most likely, I mean, Greenland, some of these countries are just insanely good. They've got a lot of runoff, a lot of energy that's needed to. And we've talked about it before on this show, where power plants are actually starting to buy up this hardware and use it to basically store excess power, because it's very, very hard to regulate in real time by winding down energy production or winding up energy production. So what a lot of them do is they just capture that energy in the form of Bitcoin, and at nighttime, instead of winding down the machines on things like hydroelectricity, like or a thermal, geothermal power. Why turn that down? Just keep it going. It's just pushing steam.
I know I always feel a lot better knowing that Martin's always got some extra machines in his shed that can be fired up, man. That just makes me feel good. Yeah. I go to bed at night and I sleep like a baby, knowing that Martin's on watch, man.
Knowing that $1 trillion network is secured by Martin's USB miners.
Don't worry about it. Funds are safe.
We will be saved by the USB stick miners. I just want to second what Josh said there and show some support for the Bitcoin network. The mining went down 30%, yet the network's fine. The transactions are still going. Everything's okay. The Bitcoin's still secure. Like Josh said, you still can't hack it. What an incredible invention. What an incredible device, right? If 30% of the bank servers went offline, do you think they'd still be up? Would eBay still be online? it was just days ago, something like Cloudflare or something else we don't even know about, like Flary or Cloudy or something, it went down fastly and the whole internet went down, right? The whole internet went down. Bitcoin loses 30%, no problem. And like Josh said, when the miners come back online in different countries, the difficulty will go back up. So we still got lots of time on this. Ben Ark, your thoughts on the Bitcoin difficulty adjustment?
I mean, we were at what, 90 exahashes in January, and now we're back just under 90. So, you know, Bitcoin was more than secure back in January and well, throughout the past sort of 5 years. So we really don't need to worry. It can drop significantly more before we would need to worry. As Josh said, it's overly secured. And this, I mean, we've just lost the mining pump we had because the price was pumping. So, you know, all these extra efforts were going into increasing that hash rate. Now, I know that the Chinese miners have all turned their miners off, but they're shipping them around the world right now. Those miners aren't going to be idle for long. And they're going to find more friendly jurisdictions and probably a more sustainable, realistic way of mining Bitcoin rather than, because in China it was predominantly government subsidized coal power plants, which were mining the Bitcoin with runoff from practically free energy, which was completely unsustainable. And now all that mining will move around the world to places where it is sustainable. So no, we don't need to worry. We're just back where we were in January, despite a huge amount of these Chinese miners turning their mining off. And yeah, they'll just find new places to set up shop. And then, you know, when it comes to more sustainable mining, of course, we've got El Salvador and their volcanoes. So hopefully maybe some of the miners will make their way to El Salvador and build out the infrastructure there and strap those miners to those volcanoes. Limitless power.
It's interesting, Ben. I'm reminded of something that Vitalik Buterin said in a speech a long time ago. And he said that the minute you finish making an ASIC or an ASIC chip, you want to plug it in right away. So the factory in China, you want to walk it across the street to the factory where you mine the Bitcoin. And there seems to be nothing economically, nothing scientific that you could change this. Whenever you put the miner in a box, you start losing money because you're shipping it somewhere and it's not mining while it's shipping.
That was more true back then when miners were being updated quicker, whereas now we're sort of butting up against Moore's law and miners don't change too much now, so you can move them around the world a little bit. But yeah, that's a funny one that most of the miners are produced in China, so now there is going to be that downtime.
Let's bang the libertarian bell, because the only thing that could change that is government intervention. The government of China stopped their people from being the most convenient place to mine these Bitcoin.
So thank you, China.
There you go. And moving on to the exit question, building on what Adam McBride was saying, if China banning Bitcoin, finally banning it, kicking the miners out, really doing it this time, we've been through 100 other China bans. If that's the worst thing that could happen to Bitcoin, and now it's happened, and we already went down because of the correction and the price doesn't seem to care and difficulties coming back, what else is there? What else can happen to Bitcoin that's bad? So give me a bad thing that could happen to Bitcoin, another country, some kind of meteor attack. Let's go to Dan Eve, Crypto Raptor.
Well, I think Prof. Wally's brought up a good point, which is what if they compel the ISPs to ban port 8333 and just keep on trolling and rebanning the ports like that? That would become a wicked game of cat and mouse. That's definitely quite a potential threat, but I think China's been kind of on and off for years, so it's almost like you could see it coming and the market knew about it. The market kind of shrugged it off in a way, and saw the benefits over the negative sides.
Martin Wismayer.
I'm not too worried about that, Dan. I've been running an open port 8333 for years and noticed about 100 nodes connecting to my node here at home. Recently, I've switched to Umbrel for my node software, which by default blocks port 8333. And there is only 10 nodes connected, but still it's connected to the network. And it connects over Tor. So from an ISP or a government perspective, I'm watching a lot of dubious porn on dubious sites or something, but they don't know what's happening because everything is going through Tor. So blocking port 8333 will only temporarily, I think, for about 70%. If all the countries in the world would do that at the same time, for 70% of the nodes would have a problem. But I think within, say, a week or so, all of them will be running behind Tor. Right now, there's about 30% of all Bitcoin nodes running over Tor. Of course, if Tor has issues, then it will affect the Bitcoin network, but I'm not too worried about that. It is something to consider. If you're running an umbrella node by default, everything is over Tor. I believe other node implementations do the same. If you do want to enable access to your Bitcoin core over port 8333, just forward that port from in your router, forward it to whatever internal IP address your node has. So then you can still contribute on the open clear network while you do all your transactions over Tor. That I do think the biggest issue for Bitcoin in general would be if, well, that's happening now, regulators start blocking on and off ramps. So it makes it harder to change your worthless fiat into valuable crypto coins. And that is something you're seeing more and more. So we'll need more fiat on ramps and off ramps, basically, that are decentralized. I think this is something that really needs work. I think BISC network is one of the few ones that does it now, if not the only one. All the other ones just all KYC, AML, send us cough up an ID, send us a selfie holding a little note that says, I want to be verified on Bittrex or whatever, you know. So that is, I think, the biggest risk to Bitcoin right now. But positive side, they can't do that everywhere in the world. El Salvador and other countries will start, you know, like using it as legal tender, so it will be impossible to block everywhere at the same time. But I think this is something that will, within a few years, become more difficult because of the FATF travel rule and all the other new accounting requirements that are being implemented throughout, like the US and Europe. But we'll see. We'll deal with it when it comes, but we're not going to let them shut down our network.
Well, I, for one, would welcome this kind of attack on Bitcoin. It's time to harden up the network and get those ports fixed. I even think they should go so far as to ban all QR codes. And then we'll do like Andreas said, we'll embed them in kitty photos, and we'll send around little kitty photos of cats, right? Kittens, baby kittens. Thank you. But yeah, there'll be kitty photos with Bitcoin in them. And oh my God, how are they going to stop that? Also want to give a shout out to Umbrel. That's a good job software configuring it to use Tor by default. People don't even know what they're doing. If they get it installed, it just uses Tor. That's the way things should be. Adam McBride, what else could they throw?
Right. On ramp, off ramp is the thing that could happen right now. That would be the biggest risk. Along with that, I would say, you know, the U.S., if the U.S. Just made it illegal, that would, you know, crush Bitcoin. It wouldn't end Bitcoin, but it would crush it to a large degree. Just because if they made it illegal, you know, 95% of the U.S. population just wouldn't touch it because they don't want to get in trouble with the IRS, right? But other than that, it seems very, very unlikely now. So I think we're good to go.
I would also like to see the U.S. That's a good example. Ben Ark, what else could they throw at Bitcoin? Or Josh, are you ready?
That's which one?
I'll go to Ben. Sorry.
That's I think I don't think it's unrealistic to think that the US could ban or try and ban Bitcoin and make it illegal to use Bitcoin. They seem to be ramping up to start a bit of a scrap with Bitcoin as they lose that USD hegemony over the Central and South American countries, which they've controlled for so long. And other countries joining in the fray as well. So that I think that will be the next big battle, is big nation states trying to ban the use of Bitcoin. And they'll use things like the Colonial Pipeline ransomware hack as an excuse, which they're already, you know, trying to do now. So yeah, I think that would be bad for Bitcoin, but it's anti-fragile. So what's that phrase by Thingy Bobby? that the network sees censorship like and routes around it. What's the phrase?
Sees censorship as damage and routes around it.
That's the one. Thank you, Thomas.
Let's go to Josh Sigala. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, terriblism. Basically, some terriblist will, do something terrible and then demand Bitcoin for it, and they'll use or it could be a false flag. You never know what they do. They just run some old game and then and say that it's terrible, and then everyone will look at you like, "What? You're in Bitcoin? You're helping the terriblists," and you're like, "Oh, but there hasn't been any terriblists since we've had COVID. Why all of a sudden?" And then you can go down a rabbit hole of reasons. But I think that's probably what could definitely put a dent in. It's the psychology of people. Like, they don't want to be associated to anything terrible, and this is a typical modus operandi of power groups. That they associate something with something really bad, and then if you stand up for that thing, then you're doing something really bad. It's like the ultimate straw man. When really you could say the same thing for shoes. The terrorists wore shoes. You also wear shoes, so you can do the same thing. But of course, that just sounds ridiculous. But when it comes to Bitcoin, that could sound not very ridiculous.
Man, Josh, you're 100% right, dude. That actually is 100% right. I mean, we also saw that coming with the greenies all coming in, and the movement just by a whole swath of people, like, Bitcoin's evil because it kills Mother Nature. You saw that happening, and Elon pointed it out, and I think that is, at least been put on the back burner. But to Josh's point, it's right as rain, man. Imagine if, I don't know, some kids get kidnapped tomorrow, 5 kids in the United States, and the ransomers, they demand Bitcoin in exchange for the kids. Good Lord. I mean, you realize it's silly, it's stupid to associate one with the other, but that's the way human nature is, and our society is completely susceptible to that. That's a great point, Josh.
Yeah,
I'm always blaming US dollars for kidnappers and those damn Vera bonds. They're always, it's the Vera bonds' fault. Go ahead, Dan.
So to any seedy people out there, if you're going to kidnap or do any crazy stuff, use like Dogecoin or something, please, for the love of God.
Exactly. Actually, they should just demand dollars, $100 bills.
Yeah.
$100
Even better.
$100 bill. Well, I think
Tether.
we're getting a little preview.
I want it in Tether.
A little preview of the next issue there from Josh. Moving on to issue 2. The U.S. State Department urges El Salvador to be responsible about Bitcoin adoption. They're saying the United States is taking a tough look at Bitcoin following a major ransomware attack, and suggested that El Salvador take a similar approach. Yes, just as we were saying, that when they hacked the pipeline, they asked for Bitcoin. They didn't ask for dollars. Therefore, all of the people buying and selling tacos and burritos on Satoshi Beach in Venezuela will no doubt be funneling millions of dollars through the taco stand. Adam McBride, is the United States government correct? Should El Salvador be responsible and be careful about the adoption?
Come on, careful about what? I mean, realistically, about what? El Salvador. I mean, if we want to get real, I won't even go into the political situation in El Salvador other than to say it's messy, right? It's a terrible economy. It's government involved in every aspect of it. Very difficult to run a business in El Salvador. There's been a huge brain drain of talent from El Salvador because of those reasons. Do I think the president of El Salvador's a genius or really cares about Bitcoin? I think he cares about himself. And, it may be good for the Bitcoin community, but I think the Bitcoin community also needs to temper it a little bit, pump the brakes a little. Because remember, we're not talking about a well-run, efficient, great country here. So, temper the brakes, pump the brakes a little bit. This isn't the perfect country to be adopting Bitcoin for us, right? So a grain of salt. Hey, it's okay. We're moving in. Other countries are accepting it now. They're accepting it as currency, or they will. Great. But don't Bitcoin Nation, please don't jump all in like this is a great thing long term for Bitcoin. This is a country with a whole lot of problems. Just leave it at that.
It's only going to take one small briefcase to let them sneak all the Bitcoin out the back door. Joshua should.
I mean, yeah, you think about it, Thomas. You think, hey, this might be just a more efficient way for government officials to get paid. Could be.
I was going to go even further.
I'm not saying that's happening, but it's certainly possible.
It's so light. You could just fit it on your person. And, you know, you could pay the guy leaving the country and he's got this little Bitcoin wallet hidden on his person and just so small.
I mean, do you think 15, 20 years ago, the guys who were running Venezuela wouldn't have jumped all over this? All over it.
The dream. I mean, we talked before about people trying to sneak gold into other countries. And, you know, you put it in the car and it weighs down the car, and you put too much of it in the car and it breaks the axles. It's so hard to sneak all of your gold out of these countries, and especially factories, tangible assets, vacation homes. You can fit it all on one little USB stick with Bitcoin.
I mean, you think about the one other country, one country that has majorly adopted Bitcoin at the national level, and it's North Korea. Like, they're very involved in Bitcoin, right? Is that a good thing for Bitcoin? Not really. We
never talk about it. Nobody ever goes there. They didn't send that tattooed guy to get the picture with the metallic.
The tattoo guy.
But come on, we got, you know, Kim Jong-un wants to support us with the Bitcoin, a national tender.
Hey, look, we had Dennis Rodman. He was pretty tattooed up.
The tattoo guy, I think,
he did send a tattooed representative. Are on board with that.
Look, yeah, it's oh man, maybe the US should have a look at being responsible fiscally itself. I mean, what? Imagine the really obese guy telling the slightly fit person to sort of, you know, watch what they're eating. You know, like, can you have a look in your own backyard? You know, that's what I got to say about that. I mean, it's ridiculous. Be responsible. I mean, look, people of America, have a look at your property prices. Have a look at your oil prices. Have a look at the wood and lumber prices. Have a look at every price index, and you'll see it going up. Yeah, maybe some things that are getting mass produced might be going down, like, I don't know, like TVs, because they're getting made by slaves in China. But the fact of the matter is, everything, every proper commodity is going up. Why? They're not going up. Your currency is going down because they're printing far too much of it. Be responsible. What a ridiculous thing to say.
We teed him off for that one. Ben Ark.
El Salvador's exactly where it should be, where it's necessary. It's not necessary in the US, it's not necessary here. I can make payments. I'm banked. I can pay my bills easily. I don't have to travel for hours and hours and hours to pay cash, to pay for bills, because I am banked and I have internet access and I have all these things which I have access to. El Salvador, I mean, the reason that El Salvador is such a mess is because of the US's approach to those countries over the past 100 years, which has completely just destroyed them. And it's not, they haven't had the environment where they can create successful working currencies and economies. So how do they create a successful economy and currency which they can use, which isn't controlled by another country like the US? Well, then they have to turn to this free and open source money, which we've been building. So it's exactly where it's necessary. It's not necessary in the US. It's one of the main selling points is wiggling out of the US's control of these countries by adopting Bitcoin. As well as obviously for the average users, for the people in that country, they then have a very socially scalable platform which they can build all these financial tools which will go on to lead the world and the world's markets. So it's great that these countries are adopting Bitcoin and they're looking at Bitcoin. And this is this article. It's by the tone of it's ramping up for an attack on Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin dissolves the power of the US over these countries. And that's what they're really worried about. But it's a good thing that Bitcoin does that. And we should totally encourage. I agree that Bukele's government isn't ideal. And a lot of these countries have a lot of problems. But it's that Trojan horse. Like you're letting free and open source money into a society. You're teaching people how to use it. You're empowering them. Whether you have some exit scam on the horizon that you're going to defraud your entire country's wealth, put it on a Trezor and leave the country for somewhere else. I mean, I don't know, but it's possible with Bitcoin for government to be very transparent on spending, very transparent of where its money is and how secure it is, but then for the people to have complete privacy, which is absolutely ideal. So no, I'm extremely encouraged by the adoption of Bitcoin in El Salvador and a couple of other these countries, and they totally need it. And this is exactly where it's necessary. It's not necessary in a evolved economy, a developed economy such as ours.
I will push back a little bit against Ben right there, where we kind of laid the blame solely at the feet of the U.S.
Solely, they've had there's like 67 attempted coups in the South and Central America, 25 of which were successful, where they placed, they had actual citizens voted for somebody to represent them, and that person was taken out by the US government, by the CIA, because it wasn't in the interests of the American government, or it went against the American interests, American neoliberal interests. It's all there in the history books.
Not saying that didn't happen. Let's say that did happen. I'm not saying it didn't happen.
I mean, it did. It's factual.
But if you live in Latin America, you will realize that the people on a personal level, individually, lean very, very socialist, lean that way.
Which is, that is not necessary. This is the problem. The
by
US,
nature,
the
they
US
lean that way.
So every time there has been a South or Central American country which has expressed any socially democratic values of bettering their infrastructure, which they probably desperately need in order to create more jobs, a more successful environment for their people to be able to thrive. Anytime that has happened, anytime a government has even approached those ideas which in the Europe we run with, and there's plenty of countries which are far more socialist leaning, as you would say, than any of those governments. The US have waded in and unstabilized the country, usually put in somebody who's some atrocious leader, who's then has gone on to rape and pillage its own country. So the US needs to back off, let these countries
the one
evolve.
we haven't been able to do that with, the one the US wasn't able to step in and actually get change, Venezuela, period. Venezuela's run their own deal for the last 20 years, and what happened to that country?
Are you sure about that? Was it not so with Venezuela, their entire economy was based on the oil which they're exporting to the US, and then as soon as you say, a socialist or quote unquote socialist leader got in control, the sanctions which were then levied against Venezuela, it's just the same as Cuba. The sanctions which were levied against Venezuela absolutely crippled the country. I mean, yeah, there was. Do
you know any Venezuelans? Because I know a lot of Venezuelans, and it wasn't the sanctions that crippled Venezuela. I know a bunch of Venezuelans who had their businesses taken from them with the inflated currency, just keep printing money. I mean, it's the same thing you guys are talking about with the U.S. They kept printing money. The money devalued. Everything became worthless. If you had a business, the prices were fixed. You couldn't make profit. If you were a profit, you were evil. And what happens? It destroys the economy. They very much did that to themselves. The people of Venezuela very much chose that path.
So do you believe that if you leave,
if you know Venezuelans, you know that happened.
If you leave all these countries to find their own path and then develop as they will, do you think they'll all just turn into communist countries? And it's the role of the US.
No, not all. Absolutely
from happening.
Absolutely. I live in one that hasn't done that. I live in Costa Rica. They have not done that. But it's right on the fence. It's right on the fence. And it is a continual battle between free market capitalism and socialism. And it's right on the fence. I'm not saying
it's a continual battle of US
It's a continual battle. I believe it's something.
And then the interests of the people in those countries, which can obviously get co-opted and coerced by people who want to get in power. And they use altruistic, good-intentioned socialists, propaganda to get themselves in power, and then they destroy the country.
So Ben, are you saying Ron Paul's non-interventionism might be a good thing?
I'm just saying that leave these countries alone, let them find their own path, and let them wiggle out.
We did it with we basically have done it with Venezuela. It's basically been left alone, and they've run it into the ground in 15 years. And people have fled completely. There's been literally millions of people running from that country, for the last 3 years. It's a humanitarian crisis. Literally, people are completely fleeing that country. And now that guy's never going to get out of power now. Why? Because everybody with any sense has left. They left a long time ago. If anybody with money got out, everybody left. So what are you going to do now? Now you have a bunch of poor people in that country who will never be able to take back power.
Give them Bitcoin.
What are you going to do now? That's
Let them
not
use
all
Bitcoin.
America.
Let them
That
use
is
Bitcoin.
very much a
Let them use
personal
Bitcoin.
choice
Yes,
on
it
a
is all
lot of
America.
levels
How
from the
did that-
people
how
of
did
the
that-
country.
how
And if
how
you
did-
know people of that country,
did that-
you know that they
Yeah,
chose
okay.
that. They voted
how
that
did
in.
why did they choose that person?
They voted that in.
Yeah, why did they choose that person?
Why?
Did they
Because
choose
there
someone
was
so
there was a
extreme?
wealthy class that they wanted. They thought there's a lot of unwealthy people who weren't necessarily rich, and they voted in people who told them, we will give you free stuff. Get ready. You're going to get free stuff. You deserve it. Why should there be any rich people in this country? It should all be fair. And so what? They voted in people who they thought were going to give them stuff. Period. Just like that. And that slope went really, really fast, down very, very quickly in Venezuela. And you have a country that's completely lost. And we'll be lucky if in 50 years they're back to some semblance of normal. Right now, you have millions of people fleeing that country, going to any other country they could possibly, literally on foot, walking out of the country. That's not all the U.S.
They're not even getting passports. They're not allowed to have
Talk
passports.
to any Venezuelans at all. You know it's not only the U.S.
I think if you look historically at the way the US has acted to all of these countries, then you'll see a very strong line of lineage as to why people would vote for an extreme party in the other direction to, more of a neoliberal agenda, such as, extreme wealth inequality.
I was going to agree with that. I was going to say the same thing, that perhaps the U.S., by attempting to stamp down all of the anti-communists, created this flow of eternal
Absolutely.
We agree there. I don't disagree with that at all. The U.S. definitely has a role to play, as does every major player. Look, they're constantly in a battle. There is a war happening right now in this world.
The US shouldn't be having that battle in these countries.
Do you understand the way this? You don't understand.
Yes, I do understand.
You don't understand.
These countries
China is in every single one of these countries, building roads, bridges, stadiums, trying to buy those leaders in that country, trying to buy it. So do you want China to be running these countries? Because if you do, get ready and enjoy Venezuela, because that's the way it goes. There's a battle between good and evil, and I'm not saying the U.S.
Why are they looking to China?
Certainly haven't. But if you want to go the other route,
so miserably,
good luck. You are inviting Nicaragua, Venezuela, Cuba. I deal with these people all the time because they're in Costa Rica. The people have fled.
And there's been wars propagated and perpetuated by the U.S. interest.
Of course, yeah. I'm not saying there isn't,
because of this boogeyman of the communists.
When there's just
been some socially,
the boogeyman of the communists is real, dude. It's real. There is real people who want real socialism and real communism. They're real. They exist. There's a couple billion of them. If you don't think they're real, wake up, dude. There's countries all over this world. I mean, you don't need to go far. I live in their backyard. Come down to Latin America and see it. See it. Yeah, there's a whole swath of people. I'm telling you, it's probably 70% of the population who would rather go communist and socialist.
What's real socialism?
That the rich people
what's real socialism?
Gains.
What is real socialism? I just want to clarify that. What is real socialism?
Are we going to go down this road?
No, I don't want to go down this road. But if you throw it out there, I need to just clarify what real socialism is.
We're going to go down this road. We're going to talk about socialism and what's democratic socialism.
No. I'm just going to ask
this conversation.
You're saying you're saying that there's people in this world who want real socialism, real communism.
Yeah, they want everything shared by everybody. Everybody gets everything the same. There's literally billions of people who want that.
There are billions of people.
Don't believe that somebody like yourself or me with anything, any more than they have, deserve it. And they should be given whatever we have.
You don't want huge wealth inequality. You don't want.
And what's the best solution for huge wealth inequality? The best solution is free market capitalism. Period.
It's centralized forms of production.
The best solution is free market capitalism.
Utopian.
But it's
Show
actually
me the option other than free market capitalism.
Everything mixed
to
together.
more people wealthy. Show me the model.
Some of both.
You know, what I tend to go back to is that the left want more a group thing. They want the group, the whole lot to be wealthy and kind and everything sorted, all the problems sorted for the group. And the right want the individual. But I see you really need the individual to be in a good place for the group to be lucky. So you kind of need to start there and then head towards helping the group. Because if you're doing well yourself, you do want other people to do well around you. You don't want to walk out your house and have kidnappings or the schools crappy or people thieving from your local shop. You want everyone to do well. So you do well by lifting yourself first up and then lifting others, lifting the individual and then the group. That's just my take on it. But I also think
I think we all agree that you need access to opportunity, but we can't guarantee you success, and that's a good starting point.
1,000,000%,
left and right.
And to blame everything on the US, the thing is that the voters of the US have never voted for some of this. This is very much the deep state, as much as that word's been sort of taken by Trumpianisms. But the deep state is there. This whole notion of the FBI and the CIA and these secret arms of government going in there to with special interests of the oil interests and stuff to manipulate certain power structures. Really, it's always about resources, and no one really votes for this. So just say the US, it's more like these secret black ops, sort of dark shadow governments, really.
But they are acting on the guise and the interests of this crusading US narrative against communism.
Well, and they vote for it in their apathy. Every time that you get to sit back and watch TV and not think about the United Fruit Company or what the CIA did in Latin America in the 70s, et cetera, that's the apathy. You're getting the benefit of not having to make that choice. Of course, not making a choice is still a choice. Who haven't we heard from on this one? Martin, do you have something to say on El Salvador? And they should be
that's
responsible with their
I'm amazed how many isms this badly written Cointelegraph article got out of people. But I think the issue here is that the many Latin American countries are using a currency they don't control. They're using the US dollar, because, well, they don't have the infrastructure to set up their own currency. But that also leaves them with a problem because they can't control the money flow of this US dollar. So they can't influence their spending of the government. Like, traditionally here in Europe before the euro, every country had their own shitcoin basically, and they just kept printing it. And if the government needed more money, they printed more of their shitcoins. And this is why you had to be a millionaire or pay millions of liras or pesetas in France when you went to a supermarket for your weekly shopping. So because the Latin American countries have no influence over this money printing process, but they are becoming a victim of it in a way, because they can't. Inflation is everywhere. So I think it makes sense for El Salvador, not going into the details of whether the company or the country is run properly or not, or the crime levels, but I think it makes sense if they already and have no influence over their own currencies or the currency they use. So why not select one that will eventually, hopefully, maybe appreciate in value in the future? And that does make a lot of sense because it might also attract some extra capital. Some totally crazy Bitcoiners will decide to set up shop there, even though I wouldn't recommend it with the current crime levels. But still, they from that perspective, it does make sense. And
you're sounding very irresponsible. Sounding very irresponsible.
Yeah, it's not really irresponsible, but this is like, it's irresponsible because Colonial Pipeline was hacked and they demanded, it is typical Cointelegraph article. I think some words might have some truth in it, but they just padded it with extra fluff. So it makes no sense at all. The Colonial Pipeline what I think it was irresponsible is that they were probably running Windows XP and never installed their software patches. So therefore it was very easy to hack. And Windows XP stands for expired. So you shouldn't be using it nowadays, especially not if you're running a pipeline company, you know?
Wait, do you think they might have been running Vista on those machines?
No, probably XP, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's XP embedded or something like that, because in the past, a lot of those, valve control systems and stuff, those were running on embedded Windows, and it's like a sort of like Windows which runs from like a flash drive, from a ROM, and it's supposed to be unhackable because you can update it, but it's not running on a hard disk, so you can't run viruses on it. But if it's vulnerable, it remains vulnerable. So I've seen a lot of ATMs, not Bitcoin ATMs, but traditional ATMs, also running the old versions of Windows embedded. Like for example, smart meters, they're easily hackable. And they form a sort of mesh network, and the collector of that mesh network runs on some form of Windows, I believe Vista or something later version. So there's the one that's irresponsible here was Colonial Pipeline, but I think El Salvador is making a good move, by opting out of this US dollar. They give people an option to diversify and maybe put some money aside and put it in a currency that hopefully will appreciate in value. At least it has been the best performing asset for the past 10 years. So yeah, I think good move. But the way that they say that you should be really careful by adopting Bitcoin almost sounded like a threat. So I would side with Ben there that, yeah, it is this hidden deep state agenda thing that's was there. So I think it's a good move. I won't be moving to El Salvador, but I think it's perfect for Bitcoin, because Bitcoin offers people an option, and especially where we are from, we don't need this option at this moment. But if you have a corrupt government, or there's lots of things wrong in the country you're living in, then having some Bitcoin might be the best thing that ever happens. So yeah.
Windows XP is the gift that keeps on giving. It'll never truly go away. And I agree with what Martin said, especially about how it's interesting for a country or a government. You don't really want to have control of your own currency, because you know what you'll do. You'll print the heck out of it and buy a bunch of weapons. You definitely don't want what the Latin American countries or the Central American countries have, which is someone else controlling your country, your currency, because they'll print the heck out of it and you can't trust them. But now there's this kind of a third option where you trust that Bitcoin, Satoshi, the developers keep the schedule the same, don't inflate the heck out of Bitcoin and use it to buy weapons. And it's a whole third option. It's a new possibility they never had before.
Exactly that.
Let's go to Dan Eve, Crypto Raptor. Are you the last one on this? I think we've almost made it around.
Yeah, I'm going to keep this nice and short and sweet. But
you're not going to explain socialism to us. Come on, I got out my Marx and workers of the world unite. You have nothing to lose but gains. The specter of the world is haunting Europe. The specter of communism.
I just think that it's really quite maybe but patronizing or is the word for it. But like the quote in there that they said to I can't remember where's the name now. I've got to get the name. Victoria Newland. She was like, I can just imagine it almost. When I read this, I imagined how it was said, and it was like pointing. Like very bossy boots. It was like, you ensure that it's like, so this was what she said to the president. You ensure that it's well regulated, that it's transparent and it's responsible, and you protect yourself against malign actors. It does sound very bossy boots like, and it's very interesting talking about responsibility when you've just printed like trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. It's really irresponsible to do that. So that's all I've got to say about that.
All right, and let's move on to the next issue. We're running out of time. Check out WCN Clips on YouTube. Just Google WCN Clips and check it out. You could still be one of the first 100 subscribers on WCN Clips. So check out WCN Clips. on YouTube. Only Ben could have a keyboard that loud. Moving on to issue 4. Jack Mallers' strike rolls out Bitcoin buys, going head to head with Coinbase. Until recently, all you could buy on strike was Lightning Satoshis, but now you can buy real Bitcoin for no fees at all. Coinbase, in comparison, charges up to 4% to buy Bitcoin. Jack Mallers, founder and CEO of Strike, says that the company is throwing a grenade into Coinbase's headquarters, calling their fees asinine. As many have pointed out, Coinbase makes most of their money on fees. So this would be a major problem if they could no longer collect them, or if zero fees becomes the new trend in buying and selling Bitcoin. Josh Shigala, what do you think of Jack Mallers and his throwing a grenade at Coinbase?
I really like Jack. I think he's a great guy. I don't mean this with any offense, but I like my Bitcoin exchanges to be very profitable, because it's very profitable to run away with everyone's Bitcoins or to not pay your security well because you're running out. The thing is, Jack Mallers is very well funded. So this is usually how these sorts of things happen, where they get in venture capital money to basically subsidize all of those costs, and then they'll hit you when those VCs want to get paid. So eventually they'll have to charge something, and there'll be a hidden cost somewhere. And as the old saying goes, if it's free, then you're the product. Keep that in mind too. Look, if you're buying Bitcoin, anyone that has bought over the last 12 years, apart from maybe since, if you've bought before Coinbase listed, basically, because that's when it crashed after that. But any time before that, and you've made a ton of money. So that little percentage that you paid the exchange to buy that Bitcoin, don't even worry about it. Just eat that, because it's fine. I think what Mallers should really focus on is a beautiful grandma-friendly use case. Charge a little fee, and that's fine, because otherwise it's a race to the bottom, and it also destroys a lot of the other startups in this space that are trying. So, I think a little bit of fees, okay. It makes sure that the staff are being paid, and make sure there's a secure exchange. I've seen too many exchanges in this game try the free card and then either get hacked, which is usually in sort of a word for they hacked themselves and pulled the rug under everyone, or they basically couldn't afford the lawyers and the regulators, or they ended up charging way too much because they get overtaken by VC or they get bought out. But yeah, Mallers, I'm not a big fan in Bitcoin of the freemium model.
Ben Ark, I've got a zero fee exchange to sell you.
How are they? I don't even know how are they doing it. Is it Lightning stuff? If they're using Lightning to, I don't know, give these free fees. I mean, for a long time, it's been fairly obvious that Coinbase aren't that technologically competent when it comes to Bitcoin. So perhaps there are some much better ways of doing this. And the team, the Zap team, Mr. Felton and Jack Mallers, and I can't remember the names of the other ones. They're all very capable people who understand Bitcoin very well. So I'm sure they're able to make a more streamlined service, and that's how they're able to bring those fees down. Well, I hope. And then, like Josh's worst fear that you then become the product. I hope that's not true. But I mean, it's a good move. Coinbase, they've had the monopoly for so long. And again, to reiterate what Josh said, I do hope that this isn't just an old-fashioned premium model, which we've seen before with exchanges. I hope this is something more. I need to look into it. I haven't read up enough on it really. But yeah, I mean, I wish them all the best, and hopefully this will take some of that market share away from awful Coinbase.
Jack Mallers has also challenged Brian Armstrong to basketball. Dan Eve, do you think Jack Mallers could take him?
Well, I always like to see, like, Jack take on the bean. Oh no, that's the wrong one. David and the Goliath. If Jack did take on a beanstalk, that's also good. But no, I think it's great challenging these larger companies with a huge share. You don't want to see a monopoly, and obviously Coinbase are kind of a bit hated in the Bitcoin world. So there is a race to zero fees, as the article said, and competition is good if they can do it technically, and you're not the product, then why not do it? It only makes sense. I mean, and even it wouldn't be crazy if say in the UK, for example, there's a stamp duty on stocks. And like, so it'd be interesting to see if the UK sort of they legalized it and made you pay a stamp duty at the point of sale, and then that would be better than even though tax is shit, that'd be better than capital gains and that sort of stuff. But yep, zero fees would be cool, as long as you aren't the product.
Well, everyone knows you don't have to pay taxes anymore. All you need to do is keep 2 spreadsheets. Yes, 2 sets of books. Martine Wismare, your thoughts on zero fee Bitcoin exchanges?
I personally thought the article was a bit misleading. It was listed on Nasdaq.com, but it felt more like an advertorial. It was all, Strike will not charge you. But if you read, the entire article, it will say that Strike is not even touching the money. So it's all done via this Nevada-based trust company who does everything. They touch the money, they do all the AML KYC. So it's easy for Strike to say, well, we're charging zero fees, but they don't even touch the Bitcoin. I mean, they're just, the guys haven't been interviewed really. They should go interview this Prime Trust CEO, Scott Purcell, and not the 27-year-old CEO of the payment processor. So I agree with Josh. There's no such thing as a free lunch, and eventually once the Nevada-based trust company gets all the transactions, they will raise fees. It's not that they will remove all fees once they get the major chunk of the market. It's like Gmail. It was for free for a long time until you ran out of space, and then it was free for another 10 years, and then they started charging you for space. So I don't believe in free. There's lots of costs associated with doing all the AML KYC, verifying all the transactions, all compliancy officers that basically don't add anything to a company. They're just there for compliancy reasons. So that they cost money, and pretending that it can be all frictionless like Bitcoin was intended is just a bunch of bullshit, to be honest. Can I say that on the show, or will we get defunded by YouTube if we say that?
It might get bleeped, but now it's Adam McBride's turn to tell us about those rascals and their free services trying to give everyone Bitcoin.
This is just
altruistic nonsense.
It's nonsense. And what it actually is, it's just smart marketing. This is marketing 101. You give it away for free. You call out your competitor like your competitor's an evil, greedy guy. And you get free press. Honestly, I'd never even heard of Strike until this article started getting passed around. I've never even heard of it, right? So yeah, it's just smart marketing. They got to find a way to make money later, as Josh pointed out. Look, they have VC funding. They can just go on, do it for free for a long time. Eventually, they'll have to make money. But I look at it as just it's smart marketing.
Yeah, when I was in primary school, and the bullies were picking on me and stuff, and a friend of mine's father said, "Josh, you know what you do? You go up to the biggest bully and you smack him right in the mouth, and then they'll all leave you alone." And it's kind of like Jack Bauer going straight up to Coinbase. Yeah. Going, we're free. They're all a bunch of ripoffs. Boom. And then,
exactly. And I'll challenge you in basketball too. Whatever. And I'm surprised they're not doing a cage match, Well,
Jack's exactly a pretty small dude. I'm surprised he picked basketball. But I like Jack.
He's in trouble. Brian really has.
If you're watching, Jack,
yeah.
I wish you all the best, man.
It is great marketing. It really got the community behind him, and he could all wave their flags. They love to hate Coinbase. So yeah, let's celebrate that part of it. But let's move on to issue 5. Issue 5. A UK court has ruled in favor of a self-proclaimed Satoshi Nakamoto over the copyright for the Bitcoin white paper. It's interesting how even the headlines are starting to call him a self-proclaimed Satoshi Nakamoto. But yes, Cobra, the anonymous owner of Bitcoin.org, refused to stand up in court and say that he owned Bitcoin.org. Therefore, the court decided against him temporarily while they sort this whole thing out, meaning that Bitcoin.org can no longer display the white paper, a major temporary victory for fake Satoshi. But everyone hates to see this. I don't know that we're that surprised. Anonymity is a very difficult right to defend in court. Let's go to Ben Ark. Your thoughts on Craig Wright's victory?
Thomas, you disgusting human
United
being.
Kingdom, the United Kingdom giving it.
I can't believe you almost called him Satoshi. It's
starting to work. Say it enough times and it works. That's the whole beauty of the propaganda. Just keep Carthago delenda est.
We'll be joining you in a few years.
Burning it down, you know, salting the seas.
If you're going to have a ClearNet website which professes to represent Bitcoin, then sadly in this day and age, you got to have a ClearNet, persona, personality, human being, somebody who can show up to a court case if you get taken to court. Otherwise, have a dark net or some sort of Tor website to host Bitcoin on. And that's just the way the technology works. Craig Wright in the UK took Bitcoin.org to court, saying that the white paper, obviously, that came under his copyright, but there wasn't a chance for that to be disproven in court, which would have very easily been disproven in court, because Cobra didn't show to the hearing, which I'm sure Craig Satoshi, right? What am I calling Satoshi? Right? Craig S. Wright.
Say it enough times that we're just gonna assuming Satoshi, right?
It's working. But yeah, so they didn't show up, which meant that then by default the court sided with Craig Wright, and they said that Cobra has to take the white paper links down, and Cobra also took link to be able to download Bitcoin Core, because he said that there's a copy of the white paper in the blockchain or something. It kind of felt like a cry for help almost. And Cobra's also been forced to pay, I think it's £35,000, which is a decent chunk of change. I did initially feel quite sorry for Cobra. It sucks that he's been pushed into this corner where he's going to have to reveal his identity. I think the biggest problem is that Cobra has been quite political in the past, and he's hidden behind that anonymity. And now if he had to come forward and it was someone it was like you, Thomas, I'm like, oh, well, okay. I didn't know you thought that. That suddenly, it's so I can see why they're afraid to come out of the shadows. But what they need to do, and what they've needed to do for probably quite a while, is hand it over to somebody else who is willing to fight those battles.
I think you nailed it. You nailed it in the beginning, Ben. He can't own Bitcoin.org and then just pretend he's an anonymous political guy. You're an anonymous political guy that owns Bitcoin.org. You got to get out of there. Otherwise, the attempt to protect your anonymity leads to this kind of failure, where the court sides with anybody who had lawyers' fees to go in there could have claimed they own a copyright to this anonymous paper. Nobody's going to step up and defend that copyright.
Yeah, this is Thomas trying to throw the scent, because we all know you're Cobra.
Oh, we all could have gotten away with it too if it weren't for your kids. Let's go to Dan Eve, Crypto Raptor. Your thoughts on the white paper being removed because of the UK courts?
Well, I think looking back, actually, I remember we talked about this in a show not too long ago when the court case first got announced, and it didn't strike me how strategic it was to take on Cobra specifically because of his stance on anonymity. So fair, they played that really well. I don't mean to go there, but it's not necessarily it's not an official ruling that he's Craig Wright. Of course, it's kind of a technicality, like with Bill Crosby. But the thing is, like, it's just so obvious that it's not him. The amount of forgeries there've been, and surely there's a time where, on aggregate, the number of forgeries and fakes that he's tried, from the BBC to even Wired backtracked, and they were the ones that initially broke the story. Surely, on aggregate, they'll realize that he's full of crap, and it's just going to be ruled out and gone with. But I just before I finish, my favorite little quote from Craig Wright is I do love this one. It makes me chuckle every time. I'm going to do an awful Australian accent, so apologies, Josh. But I remember some white paper back in 2008. It had this section on how identity worked in Bitcoin. I remember reading it, probably when I wrote it. When he forgot that he wrote the white paper. And ladies and gentlemen, Craig White.
And we're very lucky to have a couple of representatives of the United Kingdom here. When the judges made this decision, were they wearing powdered wigs? Because I could only really respect them if they had the powdered wigs and the curls. Is that still?
They do. That's what barristers wear. So yeah, in the UK we have a solicitor, but they don't go to court. The barrister, they talk to the barrister. The barrister then represents the.
Okay, so they have the power to get this PDF taken down, but they did it while wearing white curly wigs. So that really kind of negates the whole thing. Let's see. Martine Wismayer, did you talk about Satoshi or the white paper getting taken down?
Yeah, I think it's a bit sorry state of the industry if an important website like bitcoin.org is hosted by someone named himself Cobra. I mean, really,
Cobra.
It just makes no sense. I think it's just ridiculous. And then not defending himself, knowing that the judge will always give, in this case, Fake Satoshi, make him like win the court case because he doesn't even bother to show up. It's just wrong. He should have. He could have anticipated this and at least transfer ownership over to someone or a company. If it's really that desperate, then give it to Blockstream or something. They can defend themselves against these silly, frivolous lawsuits. But
or the tattooed guy,
tattooed guy that went to El Salvador. But it says the article says that this is an important development in Dr. Wright's quest to obtain judicial vindication of this copyright in this white paper, said Simon Cohen, senior associate at London-based OnChain. It's just ridiculous. They can just now pretend as if it's like theirs, as if they were right, even though it was just a technicality why they won. It's wrong, and he should have seen this coming. This Cobra guy. If you're listening, I think your nick sucks, and you should just hand over the domain to somebody that actually cares about the community instead of just pretending to be this lame Tor only IRC chat nerd that basically has a domain that is important. It's important to the community. It reminds me of the bitcoin.com debacle, which turned into a shitcoin.com type of website after, the owner decided I'm no longer siding with Bitcoin. It's ridiculous. And it should be, it should be handed over. Do it for the $48,000, whatever charge, then pay off his Fake Toshi's lawyers. And then just make sure that at least this domain is secured. It's important to have a ClearNet domain for a $1 billion cryptocurrency. So just make sure that it's managed and maintained by someone that actually has the power to defend themselves. Okay, this is all I want to say about it. I understand if he wants to be anonymous and he wants to mix politics and trolling on the internet under an alias, as considers it really important, and don't run the domain. Don't hand it over. Please do it. Do it for all of us.
I'm gonna take the opposite side.
Martine going old school cypherpunk there, making fun of his name. If you don't have a handle, you don't have an identity. Okay.
Cobra!
I know, G.I. Joe everywhere.
G.I. Joe.
All right, go ahead, Josh. You want to take the opposite side? Go ahead.
Yeah, the thing is, first of all, it's a .org, so it's meant to be an organization. There should be someone that he can say, hey, can you represent the organization? Really. But second of all, kind of like Bitcoin has Satoshi, who's anonymous. It's a weird paradigm, mirrored paradigm here, but it's kind of like, it's in the cypherpunk that if he wants to stay anonymous, as soon as someone in the ClearNet owns Bitcoin.org, then their human faults and flaws and everything starts to, be influenced. Saying that, I mean, it's not like he's just run off and disappeared like Satoshi did. He is there, and his political views are there, and I'm still waiting for the thousands of Bitcoin that we all send him as a community to make another forum actually happens. But that's a whole nother story, Cobra. No, look, yeah, I really think he should have stepped up. Maybe it would have been it's a nice little chess game that he's playing, where he's now, allowed him to win this side, only to let some like Bitcoin billionaire come in and go, right, let's go, let's finish him off. Because now, if someone else challenges him to that, then he has lied in court and will go to prison, because now you would have to prove it totally. So now it comes down to the fact that, hey, you need to prove. So maybe this is a genius move from Cobra in that we're waiting for the next case to actually make him force the hand to sign the private key.
Well, here's hoping, because they say a man who represents himself has a fool for a client. What do they say about a guy who won't even show up because he wants to stay anonymous? Adam McBride, your thoughts on fake Satoshi's quest?
Just as I'm listening to this and I'm listening to all the good points everybody's making, I start going back to this marketing thing. And I think, it's actually probably in Cobra's best interest to lose. Why? Because again, it shows up in the papers. Everybody sees his website. More people visit his website. Is that a bad thing? He may want to lose. These are small nothings. This is not $30,000. Come on, this is nothing. So from a marketing perspective, this is good news for him. So I think Cobra may be willing to take losses like this. Just creates more hype.
Exit question: the power of socialism. Should important domains like bitcoin.com, bitcoin.org, and the @Bitcoin Twitter account be taken away from whoever signed up for them first and given to someone important? Let's go to Ben Ark.
Well, I mean, that's their private property, isn't it? So it's not, it's not property over production, or maybe it is. I don't know. But maybe the general public just need to learn that these websites have nothing to do with Bitcoin, the protocol. I had a friend recently say to me, "Oh, I want to buy some Bitcoin. Can I do it from the official website?" And I was like, God, we're still there. So people need to learn that just because it has the name in the URL doesn't mean it has any association with Bitcoin. Or the protocol as a whole, and I think that's all we can really do, isn't it? And then maybe just urge Cobra. But there's no point, because that guy, girl, whoever it is never going to give up Bitcoin.org, because it's the best thing they got going for himself.
Dan Eve, should we take their domains away?
I don't know, but as Ben said, never going to give. I was just suddenly thought that it was. I thought of Rick Astley, I'm never going to give it up. I'm never going to. No, I don't. Maybe they should just reinstate the Bitcoin Foundation and give it to that. No, just kidding. No, I don't know. I think having. I don't know. I kind of like the idea that it's anonymous, right? Satoshi's anonymous. I kind of agree. I agree with Josh on that front. It's it's synonymous with Bitcoin. But the problem is that if you've got Roger Ver on Bitcoin.com and then pushing people towards Bitcoin Cash, that's equally as bad. So I don't know. You can't take the property away, as Ben said. You've just got to hope that whoever is in control isn't an ass, basically.
And wait till you see what's happening at bitcoin.net. Martine Wismayer, someone must have sense. We need to take these domains away. We've got to control them all.
I'm totally against taking away property from other people and then redistributing it as one sees fit, because that never works. But I think, for in this case, like Cobra, have some sense. And I think that it's better for the community if maybe just have it put it at a law firm, that doesn't respond to any requests unless they get dragged into court and then they bite back. So that it's the project Bitcoin project. The protocol is important enough to warrant a proper domain, and just having the domain and sitting on it, it's like, it's mine, the precious is mine, it belongs to me, and I don't reveal who I am. That's just silly. It's just doesn't fit $1 billion or $1 trillion cryptocurrency. It's wrong. And Dan's joke that we should hand it over to the Bitcoin Foundation. I think the nice thing about Bitcoin is that we don't need a CEO, we don't need an official delegation, and we definitely don't need any foundation of any sort. So that's, it makes it hard. Who will manage the domain? But I think this shows that in some countries, if you want to stay anonymous, then you shouldn't own a domain, because that will give you problems. But taking it from them and then redistributing as seems fit, no, that definitely no, Thomas, that's wrong. That's like communism.
Josh Shigala, surely someone must think about the children going to bitcoin.com. Will anyone take these domains away?
No, ridiculous. Who are they going to give it to? It's nuts. No. Keep, Cobra. But, a lot of people don't realize that Cobra doesn't only own Bitcoin.com. It's also the subreddit, Bitcoin subreddit. He's a large part there. So, it's tricky with the anonymity thing. It's part of the internet. It's internet culture. You go by your avatar, and the weird thing is that the court managed to, actually find the guy to ask him to come to court. I'm not sure. How did that work? Did he get asked, "Dear Mr. Cobra"? What did
they hit him up
say?
on Twitter, right? Yeah, it's like, "Mr. Cobra, we're going to need you in court on Friday."
Yeah, and so he said no. But I really do feel someone else will jump in and appeal this, because there's too many people that don't like this outcome.
Cobra has also been dedicating to fighting G.I. Joe since 1986. Learning is half the battle. The other half is killing. Adam McBride, surely you would take these domains away and get the internet the way it's supposed to be. Everything under control.
Speaking of Cobra, by the way, little known fact, I was in a commercial when I was a kid with Sergeant Slaughter, who was a G.I. Joe action figure. So that's a small tidbit there. My question is, what angels are we going to give the website to who are going to properly maintain this website and only provide factual information? I mean, come on. It's obviously ridiculous. As Martin pointed out earlier, he could very easily set up a corporation, a foundation, and where he still runs it, but the lawyers handle everything. Why wouldn't he do that? Well, probably because he likes this kind of controversy. He likes having total control over it. It is what it is. I'm not worried about Cobra. I'm sure Cobra is doing just fine. And, I don't think there's the need to do anything with this.
If only we could talk about him some more. I'm sure that's what he really wants. Moving on to issue 5. A 41-year-old Bitcoin mogul died unexpectedly, leaving behind a fortune worth billions. Major Bitcoin investor Mircea Popescu suddenly died, perhaps drowning in the ocean off of Costa Rica, leaving behind a cryptocurrency fortune reportedly worth $2 billion. Many are now wondering what will happen to his fortune. I have my own idea, but I'm going to wait till the end. Let's go to, we're out of order here. Let's go to Dan Eve. What do you think about the unfortunate passing of Mr. Popescu? Sorry if I said your name wrong.
I think it's, I reckon it's Popescu. That sounds very
Any
traditional.
guess is good to me. I'm terrible at this.
Well, I must admit, you know, I didn't actually know about Popescu until literally, well, you know, until he died on the 27th, I think it was. You know, it's but definitely some great reading if you read his exchange with the SEC over Satoshi Dice shares on the MPX. It's just brilliant. It's just some of the quotes on there, like. It said, "In as much as you're soliciting private information, you will have to sufficiently establish your authority to do so, which includes defeating specific challenges of jurisdiction that on a cursory examination seem to bar the institution you claim to be associated with from making these requests." Just everything's like a gotcha. It's really good if you read it. But it sounds like a legend. Very unfortunate accident. Drowned. I think it was a surf spot. I saw Alejandro mention about surfing out there. And so he got sort of taken away with the currents. But you know, it's very sad. I think there's a bit of controversy where a few people, Pomp specifically, had to delete a tweet because I think it kind of sounded like he was like saying, "Well, that's 1 million Bitcoin off the market. Hey, yeah, that's kind of good for everyone."
Too soon.
Yeah, I think he drew back on it a bit, but then said he didn't mean it. But no, definitely go and check out. I'm reading more and more about him now, and go and read Popescu's exchange with the SEC, because it's just really quite funny. It sounds like a very interesting character, the father of Bitcoin toxicity. And yeah, it's definitely my weekend's worth of reading, for sure. So RIP.
Martin Wishmayer.
He was definitely one of the Bitcoin OGs because when Eric sold his Satoshi Dice project, I don't know why he did it. I think he felt like, you know, he was landing into trouble. And went on with, I believe, Coinapult. Then Popescu, I don't know how to pronounce it either. He bought it, and well, even though at first it was an anonymous party that bought it, I did read these securities exchange, the SEC correspondence. It was kind of funny because he was just trolling them. And this is somebody that just honestly didn't care at all, and he would just went head on into it. So yeah, but it's sad. It's always sad if somebody dies. And this guy was like, you know, in his prime of his life, you know, like what, 41. Well, so that it's sad. It was in Costa Rica, so it must be near Adam. So maybe Adam saw him somewhere in the local beach bar or somewhere.
I was out surfing with the dude. I wasn't a very strong swimmer. Oh,
so that's why you're
maybe too soon.
You have all the Bitcoins.
No, the serious. In all seriousness, we were actually at the beach, just south of where he was. I don't know, a couple days before his tragic accident, and the waves were huge. They were huge. I was at a beach that isn't really even a great surf beach. And the waves were completely massive. I had to be, you know, very careful with, you know, my kid and friends of ours who had smaller kids. I wouldn't even let them go out, you know, past their knees because the rip was huge. Yeah. And so he was at a spot that's kind of famous called Playa Hermosa, famous for its big barrels, huge crashing waves. And if he was if he was medium to non-expert, it's very easy to you know, panic and die. I mean, that happens. Yeah. I mean, we lose, I don't know, 100 some odd people a year here in Costa Rica from, you know, drowning. And it's just a matter of, you know, the guys panic. They lose their energy and then they drown. It's sad. It's a tragedy always.
What do you think? Did he took proper care of his Bitcoins, or that everything was like in his own fault?
Well, I can neither confirm nor deny that I went out and looked for his treasure wallets in the waves. No, I don't. You would think, you know, somebody with that level of wealth would have contingency plans for his, you know, family. I mean, you would think, but then again, you hear these stories in Bitcoin where, you know, guys got it all in a, one safe in their house or something, or written on a piece of paper, or, you know, so who knows, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we've all heard enough stories to know that it's very possible that those Bitcoins are lost. But my gut says no. My gut says he was smart enough to take care of his family.
For this special subject, I'm wearing my World Crypto Network "Treasures Don't Float."
Yeah, the old meme. That's a great one.
If people want to have their own "Treasures Don't Float" T-shirt, just go to the shop World Crypto Network in the website and get yours. Mine is a bit tight, but it's not because it shrinks. It doesn't shrink. It's top quality. But I just got fatter during the lockdown. So.
Happened to all of us. Let's go to Josh Shigala. Your thoughts on the unfortunate passing?
Yeah, man, really unfortunate. Amazing deal back then. I was already blown away back when it happened. The deal was for Satoshi Dice. I was like, wow, that's a lot of Bitcoin. And
what was it? Was it not? It was 120,000 Bitcoin, wasn't it? I think. Yeah.
It was a lot, man. It was a lot. And yeah, I mean, and he must have had some left over. But Satoshi Dice was really, really cool inventor, you know, and I only used it a few times for fun, but I really liked some of the concepts, and I think he was pretty forward thinking to have bought that off of Eric. But man, yeah, unfortunate. I don't know if he has a family. I'm not sure. But at 41, you kind of feel you're still invincible unless you've had some sort of surgery or you've had someone close to you die, where you start to see and understand that you are fallible and that you can be brought down. A lot of people, they haven't had that yet. So it depends if that has happened in his family. If he has touched tragedy before, then he might have made contingency plans. If he hasn't, then he's donated a little bit of value, a lot of value, back to basically airdrop it to everybody that's holding Bitcoin. Yeah, it's really unfortunate, man. I hope he rests in peace, and see you on the next level.
Ben, Ark.
I think it's hard to think you're fallible when you're a self-made billionaire at such an early age. So, and then also I do notice that some of these OGs, they do kind of keep their old security models and don't update them. But hopefully, you know, he did have a contingency plan. I can't imagine that. I think he claimed to have 1 million Bitcoin at some point, but I think that's probably something of an exaggeration. Probably a couple of 100,000 by now. I've been pulled out by a rip before, and it is absolutely terrifying. I spent a decade telling my kids to just swim left, just swim right, get outside of that rip, and then swim inshore, on a diagonal. But actually, when you're caught in it and you're being pulled out that fast, when I got caught in it, I think I spent 45 minutes just swimming straight for the shore, ignoring all that, advice I'd given my kids for a decade. And it is exhausting. And I can see how you can die, particularly if the waves are big. So yeah, rest in peace. Nasty way to go. But I suppose, he was doing something he loved, and he's in a cool neck of the woods, and he'd lived a pretty exciting life. I didn't know really much about the guy. I maybe heard his name mentioned once before, but I mean, I wouldn't profess to know anything else about him really. But yeah, it's always sad to see a Bitcoiner go, and let's hope he had it backed up for his family.
Despite the entire panel's hatred of communism and socialism, I do want to argue.
Not the entire panel.
Oh, okay, me and Ben and everybody else. But I do want to argue for the idea of community here. And if you do make $1 billion from Bitcoin, you could support the community. We could have heard of this guy's name all the time. He could have been, it's that Bitcoiner supporting Bitcoiners again, or it's that Bitcoiner helping people, or it's that there's all these things he could have done with the money. But instead, it seems like he was swimming in Costa Rica. So just a little bit of a pushback.
Or you mean sinking in Costa Rica?
Sinking, yeah. Well, that's
is it too soon?
It's all kind of here. But no, I always feel that Bitcoiners with their great wealth could do something with it, and this is another missed opportunity to do something with that wealth. And I think that blends well into the exit question, which is Adam. And then we're already talking about what's going to happen with this money. I'm going to be cynical, and I'm going to just go straight out. I think it's never going to be found. I think it's going to be all locked up And it's going to be one of those nightmares, and his family and his children and everybody, they're fighting over it. They want it. They want control. And then they get there and they're like, the keys don't work, or the keys aren't there, or this 4 looks like an M, or some kind of problem. So let's go to Adam first. Do you think they'll find the money?
If they're going to find the Bitcoin, I get, it's the type of thing I'll ask the other people in the panel who know more about him way more than I do, because I'd never heard of this before the accident. I'd never heard of him before the accident. Do people know his addresses? That's my question. Do they know where his Bitcoin are?
I'm not sure. I'm sure someone does.
If he did buy a large amount, like they're saying for the 120,000 to buy Satoshi Dice, that would have been on the network, so that would have been visible. But if he used a clean account to send that from, it wouldn't be traceable. But it would be fun if you could go right up the chain. I think it would probably be very sad. Like we'd be like, oh my God, that's so many.
I don't think that they're known. And this is why the article was like, the billions are lost. But then if you read on, it says, well, it might not be 1 million Bitcoins. It might be 10,000. So, and then 10,000 is not a billion, it's 218 million, which is still enough to go, surfing in Costa Rica, but not enough to buy a country or something.
And if you're in early enough, everyone's resume is the same. They're like, yeah, I spent, billions of Bitcoin on that hotel room and that airplane flight and that thing. And just, it adds right up. And soon they're all gone. And the media is like, oh, he had so much. And he's like, oh, I went on some nice flights. Josh Shigala, will they find the money?
Probably not. This is a great time to remind everyone of Pamela Morgan's great book. She's a really great mouthpiece in this industry that talks about estate management when it comes to crypto, how to deal with your estate, and how to do it in a way that works, because you don't want anyone stealing it while you're still alive, but you don't want them fighting about it when you're dead. And there's really structured ways in a book how to do it. Just look up Pamela Morgan crypto estate management, and she'll help you deal with that, because there's no one in the West. This is a big problem in the West. No one likes to talk about death. In ye old England in Shakespearean times, that's why they had the skull on the table, because they'd like to be reminded every day that death is around the corner. So seize the day, seize the moment. But nowadays we just black it out. No, death doesn't exist. I promise you, I will never die. That sort of nonsense, to quote Team America there. It is something that will happen to each and every single one of us, unless you're lengthening those telomeres like crazy. But it will happen like crazy. So get your shit sorted, because imagine that it happens and your family doesn't have access to your wealth. Your daughter, your son, your loved ones can't have some of that ease of life.
Brutal.
And one of the simplest suggestions from that book is, even if you just write down on a piece of paper where your accounts are, what you want to be done with your funds, you sign it and you date it, that's a good start to a will. If they find that, they will attempt to follow it. Whereas if they find nothing, they're not going to know where your accounts are. They're not going to know where your treasure is. And then the passwords and everything, it's a long gone. So it is much better to try to pass it down. Everyone should check out that book. Let's go to Ben Ark. Will they find the Bitcoin?
This is why they had, maps and puzzles and all sorts of things when people used a bare asset like gold to store their wealth, for the exact same reasons, because you want your daughter or your kids or your son or your whatever to have access to your Bitcoin, or your grandchildren to have access to somehow be able to find your Bitcoin one day in the future. So you leave all these little breadcrumbs and clues for them to follow. But now, I imagine this guy, he's got vast wealth. He'll have a whole load of other assets, such as houses and buildings, whatever, businesses and stocks and shares. And I imagine he's got a wider portfolio than just Bitcoin. So his family should be fine with that, even if they don't have the Bitcoin. And I imagine they've got access to some of the Bitcoin, maybe not all of it. But yeah, it was just speculation, as if we don't know. But yes, absolutely, make a contingency plan for your Bitcoin. Anybody can get struck by lightning at any point. Yeah, just hopefully he did have a contingency plan.
And in the end, they just put the sled in the fireplace. Dan, Eve, will they find the money?
I'd like to think that that it's recoverable when it goes to a good cause. That's the main thing. I'm not one for kind of for celebrating and being like, yeah, that's less supply, motherfucker. Censored. So I think yeah, it'd be good if they do find it and it does actually go to some good causes, whether that's his own family and or other good causes. If he was a hardcore Bitcoiner, then I'd imagine that he would want to support Bitcoin in the afterlife and help it proliferate around the world. Just one final quick thing on that article that's really funny about his little exchange with the SEC. Well, first of all, they wanted a phone call, and he was like, no. Why don't you connect via Freenode, and then we can talk via that. And when they weren't having it, then they asked for certain requests, and he had to define what legal request was and what wasn't. And he says, in this sense, asking someone to pick up your daughter from school is a legal request. As far as I know of the rapidly deteriorating legal environment in the US at any rate. However, asking them to pick up your daughter and throw her off a cliff is an illegal request. The whole exchange is just incredible. So you got to read it. It's brilliant.
He was quite a character. Miracia Popescu, dead at 41 in Costa Rica. Rest in peace, and our thoughts to his family. And I hope they find that money. I'm sure he's been waiting till now to donate to the World Crypto Network. We'll be looking for that check any day soon. We're running out of time. We're way over time. We fought about socialism and capitalism. We got everything solved today. Let's go to predictions or story of the week. Martine, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week?
No real prediction, no stories of the week, just like Monday and Tuesday, it's a public holiday in Prague, so our office is closed. That's all.
Very cool. A nice long weekend. Dan, Eve, a prediction or a story of the week. Go ahead.
My prediction is that Satoshi, since we're on the message of old Bitcoiners, Satoshi signs a message calling Craig Wright a fraud, and they're happy ending. That's sometime that's going to happen soon.
Never too late. He could come back at any time. Is he back now? Adam McBride, a prediction or story of the week. Go ahead.
No predictions, no stories. I do apologize if I made fun of the poor guy drowning. We're getting that in the chat. I apologize. That's on me. There's nobody in the group of me who was making a little fun of that. That's just my nature. I apologize for that. That was a little uncool. I think Ben hit the nail on the head with that.
That the ocean is a monster and that it'll drag you in. And a friend of mine was on a houseboat. He fell off, and it's just, you don't know what happens. Everyone be careful with the ocean. Wear a life jacket. I don't know. I just think.
Yeah, I think Ben hit it on the head. It's like you get. I was the same way when I was younger. You believe you're invincible to a degree, and I'm telling you, the waves were massive. And he was probably like, "Oh, there are guys out there. There were guys out there, like expert surfers." And he might have been a mid surfer, pretty good. Thought he could handle it. And like Ben says, dude, the rips. I'm telling you, the rip currents here in Costa Rica. I've gone 300 meters directly sideways on a beach in 15, 20 seconds. Like, it can get crazy. And if you start swimming, that's actually the thing shouldn't do. You should just float and just dive under the waves. Like, that's the word of advice for the day. Because if you can float, you can't drown. And give it 20, 30 minutes and then start swimming in. Because it can take you literally, like in Costa Rica here, like a quarter mile down the beach. It can be crazy. And so yeah, it's a bit of a tragedy, that's for sure.
I because I remember people would always talk about rips, and I think these rips are bollocks, because I'd never actually experienced one. And then when I did, it wasn't even that big, the waves, but I just hit the water at the right point and off I went. Poor bloke.
All right, Ben, arc prediction or story of the week. Go ahead.
Not much. Got some customizing capability in. What have I done? right there. I might have to. It's so confusing. Can you see? You can see my screen, or have you got like a thing in front of it?
Yes,
What's
we
it?
can-
What's this? What's this? Let's get rid of this. That shouldn't be there. Right, there we are. Beg my pardon. Using LM bits. So here we go. So these are all the tips we've got for this show, which is pretty sweet. And then obviously, you know, we stream a Copilot, we get rewarded with a little animation. But what we did add to LM bits this week is the ability to have different themes, which is quite nice. And for the El Salvadorians there, we've got an El Salvador theme. We've used the blue there from their flag. And then we've got my favorite, which is Flamingo, which looks lovely in dark mode. So, but yeah, we added some themes, and we also made it really easy to customize it. So, you know, replace all the titles with your own titles. So you could turn it to your Starbucks coffee shop, and then all the LM Bits things will get replaced by Starbucks coffee shops.
Oh, can you have the
and the
font
tagline
as
here.
Comic Sans? Like
Oh, we haven't gone that.
Bits?
We haven't gone that far yet, but I expect it's probably imminent because people like the garish CSS, don't they? A bit of Comic Sans and some glittery effects and what's flipping gradients on the buttons, all that stuff. Eventually we'll have all that, but for now we've just got a few different choices when it comes to theming, which I think is quite cool.
All right, for the audience out there, I challenge you to go find your favorite Twitcher, tell them about LM Bits, and we'll promote the show on the next show. The channel for the gamer if he's using this, because this needs to be used. It's amazing. I love it.
Okay, let's make 3 vouchers, LNURL vouchers. No, I don't want to use unique URLs.
And you got to explain what it does. So as someone's been saying,
during the show, you've been able to scan. You've been able to scan. I don't know what it is, but you've been able to scan a QR code and then pay a tip, and then that tip has gone into this wallet here. And now, that's another tip which has gone in. Great, thank you. And now
it makes things appear on the screen.
It makes things appear on the screen. And now I'm making what's called an LNURL withdraw, which is the ability for you to scan a QR code with your phone, with your Lightning wallet, and then you'll pull 500 sats out of the screen. So you're able to pull back some of those sats, which you've given us as a tip. So I think I'm probably going to discourage people from tipping because we'll just keep giving the sats back, but it's good fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. But yeah, anyone could use this streaming software, LN Bits streaming software thing on their videos, and they could make different things pop up, right?
Yeah.
And where can they learn more about that, Ben?
Oh, I made a mess of it again with this thing. Just go to lmbits.com or the LM Bits GitHub.
If people find it confusing to install their own node and LN Bits, I found the easiest way to get started with LN Bits is just start yourself an Umbrel node. You can do that on a Raspberry Pi. It will cost you almost 40 euros, but then you've got your own nodes. Add a hard disk, install Umbrel on it. And then within a few clicks, you got not the latest version, but the very recent and automatically updating version of LN Bits. It's super cool. I recommend all the viewers at home to have a look at it if you're interested in developing for Bitcoin or just creating a jukebox, a paywall, a faucet, a tipping thing. There's so many extensions. You'll have enough to toy around with for at least a month. It's super.
Does that still use Tor?
Well, the thing is, LN Bits is installed and then it will be available via Tor. But if that's an issue, then just punch a hole in your router to whatever port LN Bits is running on, and then you will be able to access it in ClearNet. Ben, correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct. That's exactly right. Yeah. Blitz also, the Raspberry Blitz also, you can run over Tor. And these LNURLs, they run on Tor as well. If your wallet, your Lightning wallet on your phone is running through Tor, which you can do with the Bitcoin Lightning wallet. You can also do with Blue Wallet as well. I think you need to install Orbot, which is like a Tor thing, which then sends all your requests through Tor. So yeah, you can have, pretty damn good privacy via a Lightning wallet on your phone through Tor, and then your LN Bits through Tor as well.
All right, very cool. Dan, Eve, prediction or a story of the week?
Do I get another one? So first of all, Satoshi's going to assign a message. My second one is that a huge Twitcher is going to use LN bits.
Hey,
All right, Josh.
Let's make it happen. I don't know. Doesn't Crypto Cobain? He's got like a huge. He's a huge Twitcher. That would be cool. I'm sure he'd be cool into it. So maybe if anyone knows Crypto Cobain,
yeah. Yes, please.
Gosh, Shigala, prediction or story of the week.
We got at the Standard, my new project, the standard.io, got 1,000 people in the Telegram group. So join us on t.me/thestandard_io and join us there. It's communities building, and it's a fun project.
All right, very cool. Check out the Standard. Also, everyone check out shop.worldcryptonetwork.com. It's where Martin got his Treasures Don't Float t-shirt. Let's see, we all see it today. Dan's got, or I'll switch to the white video. Here we go. Dan's got the t-shirt. I've got the mug. Martin's got the t-shirt. We're pimping the merch all over the place here. So if you guys want to get your own merch and it helps support the network at shop.worldcryptonetwork.com. So everyone be sure to give us a thumbs up. Subscribe down below if you haven't already.
Tip for the viewers, Thomas, if you're like a little bit bulky like me, select color black, because it will make it you know what I mean? Otherwise
it's slimming. It's slimming.
Yeah, it's slimming.
And get the bigger one. The COVID sizing sign is on. I think extra large instead of a large is a good idea. So but we're running out of time. They're starting to turn on the drills. Thanks so much for joining us. Until next time. Bye bye.